Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. This is Kevin with the LSA, and I'd like to welcome you all to our webinar series. Today's webinar is titled The Future of Search and Why Local is So Important, and will be brought to you by our guest presenter, Dwayne from Yext. During the webinar, feel free to type any questions you may have in the question box on the screen, and after the presentation, Dwayne will address them. Before we get started, just a few things about today's webinar. The webinar will be recorded and available within 48 hours. We will email all registrants with a link. You can also view past webinars on our website by looking under the Insights tab and clicking Webinars. Additionally, we do have an event coming up next week that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention. Our Locology Engaged SaaS/SMB event will take place in Washington, D.C. on June 3rd and 4th. This is the only event that brings local SMB users and SaaS technology providers together in the same room for open discussion, education, and networking. To learn more, visit locology.com. So with that, let's get started. Over to you, Dwayne.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Kevin. I very much appreciate the intro. And everyone, thank you for your time today. I'm actually going to try to go through this fairly quickly today for us so we can get to some Q&A. There's a lot of information in here. I will call out for you if there's a slide that I think maybe you want to take a quick screenshot of or a URL that you want to grab. I'll make sure to call that stuff out. Before we get started, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Dwayne Forrester. I am the Vice President of Industry Insights for Yext. Prior to this, I used to run Bruce Clay Incorporated, or prior to that, I ran Webmaster Tools for Bing and the SEO program at MSN. So I've been doing this for well over 20 years now, written a couple of books, and as fortune would have it, I get to present webinars like this to great, interested folks like you all. So I definitely appreciate your time, hoping we can give you guys all kinds of value as we go through this. So like I mentioned, we're going to talk here about 4 major trends. We'll go through all of this information. Along the way, there will be resources, and like I mentioned earlier, I'll call those things out. So trend number 1 that we're really looking at here is this idea of your brand is everywhere. And that is a very important concept that companies need to wrap their head around. In your everyday, the work that you're doing, I'm sure you feel this. And that is there are multiple customer interaction points, and it's continuing to grow. In fact, I'm willing to bet that if you look at this slide, there are a lot of you watching this webinar who would look at that and say, yeah, I have to manage Facebook. Yeah, I have to manage Google search. I have to manage Bing. I have to manage Instagram. I have to manage our chat system. Everybody's asking me about voice search now. All of the social media stuff is coming to me. Oh, somebody mentioned augmented reality the other day. What am I going to do about that? This is the reality of businesses today, the work that you have to manage. And this chart doesn't get smaller. It only gets more added to it at the top end as time goes on. So there's obviously a lot to be focused on here. Now, one of the things that we noticed at Yext was we kind of looked into our own data set and we did some surveys, and we found out that in the cases that we studied, and this was about 1,000 businesses that we looked across, these businesses are really getting a lot of their high intent traffic through new services. So not coming to the first party website, most of that, almost 3/4 of that high intent traffic, and high intent traffic means traffic that is intent on going to your business. So they are about to come to your business. They're checking the social media feeds, they're checking maps, they're checking Yelp, they're checking these other areas, or they're getting to you through digital assistants, third-party sites. That's how they're finding name, address, phone number, all of these pieces prior to coming to you. So it's not really an option to just focus on your first-party website now and say, okay, the rest of it we can ignore. That's just not the reality today. In fact, there are more entities that are continuing to come up. And if you guys have been paying any attention over the years to things like structured data, and especially schema.org, you'll know that you have to manage a myriad of elements. And today, you need to manage information around your company, events that your business is having, the people at your company. Consumers today are looking for this type of information more and more. They want to know what kind of events are going on near them, and then they want to know what business it is after they know about the event. Then they make their plan to go. They want to know about the company, the history of the company, where the company invests, the community support that the company offers. They want to know about the C-suite, the owners, the operators, the executives. Are they philanthropic? What do they actually support? Does that ethos of those people, does it replicate the consumer's point of view? And that is a very, very important perspective that you have to be considerate of. Now, you're an SEO, you're a digital marketer. This is a really big step in another direction, but it's proof of why things like structured data are so important to today's businesses. So even a local business, having that story of how the business was founded, the idea came to the owner one day because they were trying to solve this problem. They didn't have a ready solution. They decided they were going to do something. Others encouraged them to start the business, and now they have a business serving the community. That story resonates with consumers today. It needs to be told. The people that are in it need to be marked up. The company information needs to be marked up, because as consumers look for these things near them, that's when they actually find the answers that they're seeking. So another part of this is that your website is upside down. Now, this isn't really going to be a shock to a lot of folks, right? Because we kind of already know this, but there are people, I'm sure, within your organizations that are a little bit, they don't quite get this yet, right? And it's this idea of how people get to the answer they want to see. And, Google and Bing have done a good job at actually showcasing this, of being able to get us to our answer instead of just saying, oh, here's a web page, you can click through it, go to the home page, navigate down, find what you want. That used to be how we found information. Now, it is definitively not how we find information. Consumers, in this example, looking for a job, they want to apply for a job with the business. Those consumers are not going to the home page and then finding the careers section and then going down through the stack of jobs and finding something. They're doing a search for the jobs, and as of today, Google will show the job in the search results, taking that user, taking that searcher directly to the application page for that job, cutting out everything else. So it's incredibly important that you understand that's the consumer experience. That is how they are getting to where they need to be. So that one page that they actually access has to contain all of the information, not just that answers their query, but tells them or gives them easy access to everything else they might need related to that. And if it's applying for a job, they may also want to know about the company history, about the executives in the company, philanthropy, community support, and so on. All of this information now needs to live in these places. So consumers are not just, they aren't just taking different paths to your site, they're actually taking a direct action at all of those touch points. And that is a huge step. I mean, we talked about this earlier, right? Consumers are going to Facebook. They're looking up information about your business. If you're a local restaurant, do you have your menu there? Is it a complete menu? Is it current? Is it accurate? Are the prices right? Is your delivery service, are you a part of this service? Are you a part of that service? Which service do you join, or do you join all of them? We recently saw Google taking on the ability to have you place your order directly in the search results through specific delivery services. Well, if you're a local restaurant and you want to be a part of that, you're going to need to make sure all of your information is current. You have to stay on top of that, and you have to be a member of the 2 services that Google has partnered through. Without that, you're at a disadvantage. And it's very important that you understand all of these things, all of the possible areas that somebody may want to interact with you at. All right, I'm just going to try to get us to the next slide here, gang. Hang on a second. So one of these ideas that I think is really important for you guys is this new metric called total brand interactions or total brand touches. And this is starting to become a metric that I've been seeing across a lot of enterprise companies. If you're an SEO and you're into digital marketing, you understand this idea of the website traffic and how to maintain and how to manage that, where to get the data, what it looks like, what the numbers are telling you. But beyond that, there are a lot of other brand touch points. So if that data holds accurate, that 73% of people are interacting with third-party locations for your business, more so than your first-party website, if that is accurate, then that means there's a lot of data out there from those third-party websites that actually tells a bigger story about how people are engaging with your business. And it's very important that you're looking at that data, that you're trying to collect that data, and you're figuring out what that looks like. It may not be easy, but it is something that you definitely need to maintain and watch for. Brings us to point number 3 here. This customer journey ultimately starts with a question. And I realize that customer journey, we've been saying that for probably a decade now. And it is, some people will say it's overstated. Some people will say there's too much focus on it. The fact of the matter is the customer is always and almost totally focused on their journey, which means the search engines, Bing, Google, and every other search engine are focused on the customer's journey, which means every business, whether we're sick of saying the phrase over and over again or not, has to focus on the customer's journey. There's a lot of value inside that. So we'll dig in a little bit here on this one. And it's a very interesting concept today, because we've entered the world of getting discrete answers as opposed to just a list of results, for example, right? You would have historically a search page and you would just get a SERP and that would be it. You'd have a list of links and off you go. Today, we don't have just that. In fact, that's becoming a minority situation as we watch. The customer journey starts with a question. Someone has a question and they're looking for an answer. Now, the vector by which they get to that answer, whether it is typed into a computer, so a desktop search, typed into a mobile device, a mobile search, or spoken out loud to a digital assistant, that could be on a mobile device or a smart speaker, the journey remains the same. And in a lot of instances, we will see scenarios like this play out. It's a fairly simple thing. The person wants the best outdoor Bluetooth speaker. So the next step in that is they're looking at reviews, they're doing research in search engines, they're watching videos, they're reading blogs. Then they start to ask a deeper question. What outdoor Bluetooth speakers have the best bass and treble? Because now they realize the sound quality matters to them. Somewhere in their research, they learned that when you're outside, you need better control over those factors and more amplification in order to maintain clarity of the music and the sound. So that next question leads them back to search engines, but now deeper focus on things like expert websites. They're looking at product pages, looking for statistics, the actual frequency ranges, all of that very deep information. They're even going to touch the product pages and then into FAQs to see what the company is saying about their own product. They narrow it down and now they start refining this question of who carries a Bose Bluetooth speaker, because they realize, oh, I want this brand. This is what I'm looking for. And so now they're asking possibly the virtual assistant, or they're going to the branded website, or they're finding a third-party distributor for Best Buy, for example, who would sell this product. Now they're asking, where's the nearest Best Buy that's open right now? And that leads to the moment where they pick it up in store. Now, for Best Buy, that could be a matter of an opportunity where the person comes directly to them and they walk through the door. Best Buy would never know that this person did all of this research to then walk in the door and say, this is the product I want. Or the person may opt to purchase the product online and pick it up in the store, in which case Best Buy will know directly that the person came from the web interaction and ends up in store. Both of these are very important. And if you look at this information along this path, Best Buy has the opportunity to see where the consumer starts to impact them, because that consumer finds them via a web search or a link from the actual product manufacturer. So from Bose's website to Best Buy would be a link, and Best Buy would be able to see that incoming traffic. Then they can attribute that to these folks. The difficult part is knowing that it was you who walked in the door and generated that sale and making that attribution. That's still the hard part right now. But there is a lot to this that impacts the world of search, that impacts the world of search marketing, and has a direct impact on a local level business. And this what we've outlined here, we're talking about an enterprise level example, but this comes right down to cupcakes in my neighborhood or, frozen yogurt. All of it is similar. And that has a major impact on people coming, which ultimately means you have to structure your brand data for conversations. You have to have all of this information identified in a way that allows you to predict the intent of the consumer. You've heard Google talking about intent. Even back 5 years ago when I was with Bing, we were talking about intent, what it means to predict the consumer's intent. That is a massive moment. And if you can actually predict their intent, you can then position yourself on the pathway to be most useful in their journey, where they're going to need you. That's very important. It's everything. In this example, we're talking about, financial planning and this kind of idea, but it's identifying all of these discrete questions that are moments along this journey path for a consumer, and then exploring all of those and having answers for every one of those. You don't know exactly where the consumer is going to go at any moment, but if you watch these patterns enough, and this is exactly what the machine learning is doing behind Google and Bing, it's watching all of these patterns. And over time, with a volume of patterns, it can now start to predict the intent. If any user comes in and goes here, the next most logical location is here. That prediction of intent allows them then to feed the proper ads into the search results that they know get clicks and engagement and ultimately drives revenue for the search engine. So you can take a similar kind of mental approach to how you manage that, what that path looks like for a consumer, and identifying those things. So as we continue here, ultimately, as consumers, if you think back to when Google started, and I know, a lot of folks on here don't necessarily know that time when there wasn't Google, but you would have at least been around at the beginning of Google, and you will understand this, that we are being trained to search differently. At first, we were just told, here's a box, throw some words in, we'll figure it out. That was the search engine's magic. And the search engines got pretty good at that. Just put in 1 or 2 words, we'll bring back a list of things. And as consumers, we were trained that that list of things, that search results page, was gold. You usually found what you wanted on the first page, but it still meant you had to go looking for it. You had to go find it yourself. That was work. Now, with the advent of voice-activated search, whether it's an assistant on your phone or a smart speaker, we're being trained all over again to just ask for what we want out loud. And when humans do that, they don't ask questions in keywords. They ask questions as questions, because we are taught from our most formative years to form full questions when we want something. That behavior comes apparent in search. Unfortunately, none of the data that we get from the search engines really breaks this out at a question level. They parse out a lot of words that they just think are not needed in the data. You end up with a whole bunch of long tail results in there that are 1 and 2 queries over a 30-day period. You're not exactly sure what they meant because it's a sentence fragment, it's not a full sentence. You could be thinking about those sentence fragments, though, as actual sentences. You could look at that and say, well, what if I added, so if, this question that we pose on the screen right now, what is the best Chicago pizza? In Google, the analytics may be just showing you best Chicago pizza because the rest of it is assumed. Well, if you actually added what is the best Chicago pizza as a phrase, is that reasonable that people would ask that out loud? That is completely reasonable that is a statement people would make. And therefore, we know that we are being trained to search differently. So a generation from now, when Gen Z are the predominant users of technology and the generation behind them is coming up, we will definitely see a marked change in how we're asking our questions and getting our answers. The idea of typing into a search box and getting a list of results will be very antiquated, and a lot of people will say how quaint, but it will not be how we actually grab that data and that information. So one of the important things that we need to continue to kind of tell ourselves is, this change is happening now. How do I understand it, and how do I better connect these dots, right? Moving from keywords to questions, what does that look like? And it's important that you start thinking about this. If you're an SEO, you grew up and you still think in terms of keywords today, doing keyword research. It's still important, it's still foundational, but you actually have to build questions from those keywords now. And if for any given set of keywords, you now have to understand how many of the possible questions are there related to the keyword and what are those, which ones are most relevant and most likely. It's likely somebody may ask, where's the nearest gas station? It's less likely someone would ask, what is a gas station? Both of them are valid questions. They will both be asked, but in most everyday context, the question is, where is the nearest gas station? So we see this coming about, and it's happening right now. And it's ultimately being driven by this focus on intent. What is the intent? And the intent can basically be broken out into like 4 main areas. I want to know, I want to go, I want to do, I want to buy. Those are the areas that humans typically move toward when they think of intent, or when we exhibit an intention. It is around these ideas. I have a question, I need knowledge, I want to know. There is somewhere I would like to be, I want to go. There is something I would like to participate in, I want to do. There is an object that I wish to own, I want to buy. And so by going through this over and over, this is really difficult for a business, especially a small business. It's really easy for a search engine because it relies on a volume of data. Right now, we do not have reporting from the search engines telling us what intent modeling looks like. I really wish we did. I'm hoping we will get there. But you guys can actually do some of this work on your own by asking questions like this. You know, how many calories are in a Big Mac? Just Paragon Sports carry Nike sneakers. Where can I get a gluten-free ramen right now? Who's the best cardiologist for children? Think about those things in terms of real questions, and then start modeling out what you believe is realistic. And then when you've done your work, you know, give it to other people in your business. Ask them, you know, do these questions sound reasonable? If I gave you these keywords, what would you think of to ask around these keywords? And then take that home and ask your family and friends. You will build out an intent model from that based around questions. And those questions then become the basis for the content, for the answers that you need to work on. A lot of times, you'll already have that content done. You've got the answers in there. What are the hours of operation? Done. What is the menu? Here it is. What is your address? Here's the address. What is your phone number? What is your website? What are your social media spaces? All of those things are probably already filled in the background. They're easy to manage. But you will start uncovering things. Do you have gluten-free pasta on your menu? Well, it may not have occurred to you to figure that out. And the answer may be up front, as a small restaurant, the answer is no, I don't have gluten-free pasta. But then as a business owner, you have to ask yourself, well, if I saw that 15 times in my search results that somebody was looking for gluten-free, my analytics is showing me that keyword, maybe I should stock some gluten-free pasta here and then put that on my menu. Off you go. It's a really easy way to kind of predict what people are going to want. So intent, hugely important. In fact, you know, Google did a Think with Google piece where they talked about this. And one of the main quotes from it is, the future of the industry lies in understanding the customer's intent. The next big thing is around predictive intent. I know this from my time inside the search engine. Like, the focus on consumer intent and predicting what consumers are going to do, that is every waking minute of every waking hour of every waking day inside a search engine. That is the focus. And if you can get to that point, it is massively powerful. So understanding the customer's questions is key to capitalizing on that intent. Let's be clear about this. You can do surveys and just ask your clients, ask your customers, what is their intention? You can do that. You can do focus groups where you'll bring them into a room and you'll ask them this, and they will explain it to you. And then you can augment that by sitting down and looking at what their behavior is in your store, what the behavior is via social media, via your first-party website, and so on. But you build this view of understanding all of this. And then you get to opportunity to do things that are really, really interesting, targeting your consumer's intent. You know, we're back to that Bluetooth speaker example that I mentioned earlier, right? There's all kinds of pieces of information about this that are important to the consumer. Sound quality and all of the factors that go into that. The amount of power, the color is a minor thing. The environment that it has to live in is really important. Therefore, the requirement is that it's waterproof. Well, price matters as well. And so all of these things will help you understand what the consumer's intent is. If I answered all of these questions for you as a marketer from Bose, I would be able to then look at this and say, well, the intention from this consumer is to use the speaker outside near their swimming pool. Okay, well, as it happens, we have a speaker that is made to be used in the swimming pool or around the swimming pool. It floats, it's waterproof, it sounds good, it's got lots of power, you've got a selection of colors. This is the right product for that consumer. And then you get to do really interesting stuff by overlaying demographic information with your intent marketing. So now we're talking about identifying people based on the education, the age, the income. So that speaker that I just described from Bose is not going to be cheap. That's going to be an expensive product. They're going to market it against people that have the income and are of a certain age. That's who this will be marketed to. And that marketer from Best Buy or from Bose will then take that into the social media realm and use the explicit targeting that's available through social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and so on, and actually put that product in front of people who will convert. These are powerful things that even local businesses can do. These are things that a local business can take an action on. So the world is having a conversation. I'm going to move us along here a little bit because we got a bunch to cover in this, and I've got some really great resources for you guys, and I want to make sure we have time at the end there for some Q&A. So the reality is that, today we're in this world of conversation and AI. That's the space we live in. We are not talking about mobile first anymore. That's implied. Google just came out last week or earlier this week with an announcement. All new domains will be parsed by the mobile crawler first. So there you go. You got to be mobile friendly. That's it. Now, that might seem like, well, that's not a big deal because, I'm already established. It doesn't affect me. But it has a very big effect 10 years from now, because what it means is every new website that gets built from today moving forward has to be mobile friendly. It's not optional. They have to be mobile friendly or they don't get included. So that's a really powerful stake in the ground for Google to be saying, you got to pass mobile friendly. They've been telling us for years, you need to do mobile friendly. Well, now what they're saying is, all right, everybody else is grandfathered in. Anybody moving forward, mobile friendly or nothing. There you go. This is the reality of where we find ourselves today. And this idea of conversational search, one slide too many. Conversational search is a really big deal. It's driving consumer interaction with AI. And that's everything from, what we consider to be rank brain in search through messaging platforms, apps that we use. Our voice assistants are powered with AI, chatbots. It's all machine learning driving AI. And most of this is applied to natural language processing because that allows the very rich experiences for people for the computers to understand the questions they're being asked, and then to a lesser extent to be able to vocalize the actual answer itself. And this is a huge area, right? We're seeing a shift from links to answers in the search results. This is what we see. We see less answers coming back as links on a given screen that you can view. We see more answers coming back that are either spoken out loud because they were asked a question, so the voice assistant is asking it, or people are going directly to chatbots in a lot of cases now and getting direct answers. So they're not engaging in search and going and trying to look for that information themselves. They're going to these other locations that are being powered through AI interfaces and getting the answers that they want. This is a very powerful moment. We are actually talking about the change to answers from links. So an example of that, what is the best Chinese restaurant? So you get a web result that'll show you a local pack here. A chat result might have a couple of those same things in it, but ultimately you'll notice that the footprint is dramatically smaller. You're seeing a lot less information in a chat result. And then if you come down to voice, there's one answer. And then you're asked if you want more, or maybe the assistant will give you 3 of them right off the top of your head, but humans being what they are, that's a lot of information. We tend to then go back and say, tell me the first one again. And there you are. And ultimately, when it comes to the local environment, you're still being put up against that distance, relevance, and prominence standard. So it's not just that, if you have structured data, you get included in that. You still have to pass all those normal tests for distance, relevance, and prominence in order for the voice assistant to get your business in the queue for it to then be spoken out loud. So there's a lot of layers that are happening here that you have to get right. You have to nail all of these areas if you want to be spoken out loud. And we all know that the Amazon Echo Dot is the #1 selling device for the last 2 holiday seasons. So we know consumers are using these things. And if you think voice is a fad, you want this link. You want to go to this link and you want to read this voice report. It came out about 2 weeks ago from Bing, and I had an early look at it, and the data in it is very interesting. I'm going to share some of that here in a minute, but this is a chance for you. Grab this URL and make sure you get over there and take a look at this voice report. So we'll dive in here and just take a quick look, right? How are people engaging with it? They're using their digital assistants. 72% of respondents are doing that. Smart home speaker, 35%. Smart television, smart home device, 36%. Voice commands in a vehicle. This is a massive number for voice commands in a vehicle, 31%. Voice skills or actions to a smart speaker, 52%, which tells us that people are getting comfortable using the skills in Amazon's ecosystem or in Google's ecosystem. It tells us that they're very comfortable using Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant, Cortana, all of these features. And if we look a little further into this, what we will also see is how many people own smart speakers. Now, no surprise that there is a big jump here from 2018 to 2019. This is the holiday season I mentioned. Massive jump, almost a doubling of the number of people who own smart speakers. And no surprise as well that the purchase or planning to purchase numbers have dropped in 2019 because more people have these things. And the people that say, I have no plans to purchase these, has dropped very obviously and noticeably for 2019 over 2018. A lot of that drop has to do with price sensitivity. You can get one of these smart speakers for $10 to $20 now. There's no purchase price barrier for most people. And so they're happy to actually go and own this technology, to be a part of what's happening with gathering the information this way and being a part of it. So just trying to get us to change a slide here. Here we go. 75% of households will have at least one smart speaker by 2020. That's what Gartner is estimating. I would frankly believe this. I've had 5 smart speakers in my home since they launched. So having said that, I'm obviously not a normal consumer of smart speakers. I would hazard a guess that most of you listening to this webinar would not be the normal consumer. I would suggest most of you already have this or are familiar with using the smart digital assistant on your phone. But this is a big deal. I mean, you think about this, and I'm going to give you this statistic or this little point of information. Amazon has a partnership with a company called Lennar, and Lennar is a company that builds houses. They don't just build houses, they build entire communities, neighborhoods of hundreds or 1,000 homes. That's what Lennar does. And one of the options that you can check off now when you are doing a custom order with Lennar for your home is you can specify that you want an Amazon powered home, which means the Amazon Assistant is embedded within the home. There are speakers and mics embedded in the walls. This isn't, you buy your home and they give you an Amazon Alexa. This is every room, all through the house, everywhere you want it and you specify it is wired for sound. And you can simply walk around your home talking to your assistant. That is big. And it's going to become increasingly important as time moves forward, because you can imagine a real estate market where now real estate agents are being told by prospective buyers, I want a home that has Alexa. I want a home that has Google Assistant. That is the reality for consumers in the next 5 years. And today, you can see these are how people are using digital assistants. They're searching for a business. Almost half of the people using them are searching for a business. That alone should be enough reason for everyone to make absolutely certain they are maximizing their structured data deployments, that they are using everything they possibly can. They are trying to predict every possible question that a consumer could have, and they are answering every one of those questions. That one statistic alone should be enough to spur that action. But people are also asking for directions at a very high rate. They want to get there. So they're using their phone, they decide they want to be somewhere, and they're using it to go there immediately. There's all kinds, as you can see on here, all kinds of information about this. So there's some other stats in here that I found are very interesting. Are consumers shopping by voice? Almost 35% said yes, and they enjoyed it. Another 27% no, but I would like to. 6.5% yes, but I didn't enjoy it, and 31% nope, and I don't plan to. So still a wide spread here, but if we had rewind this 2 years, the numbers on the left side of this chart would be, they'd be decimals, they'd be single digits at best. We are steadily seeing an increase in growth in this type of behavior with consumers. So voice is definitely not a fad. And the way these systems operate is pretty straightforward. They have a user interface. You cannot control that. They have an actual artificial intelligence that's running in the background behind these. You can't really control that. And what you can control is the knowledge graph, the information that they possess about your business. This is where your content, your questions, your answers, all of the information on your website, everything that is marked up with structured data from schema.org or wherever you choose, all of this information is what you control. And that's how you control what they say about you, is by managing your business's brand data. It's hugely powerful and often a missed opportunity. 57% of respondents expect to be able to reach and engage with their favorite brands through digital assistants within the next 5 years. That's straight from the Bing Voice survey. So over the next 5 years, if you are not able to present yourself through the digital assistant properly, this is what's to be lost. 60%, 6 in 10 people expect to be able to talk with your business through a digital assistant, to interact with your business through a digital assistant. That's a really high bar, and I think really important that companies and businesses of all sizes pay attention to this. Visual search. It's another aspect to all of this. We talk about voice, but visual is also important. And there's the usual stuff like Google and Amazon and Facebook. They all have their own hardware that has screens built into it, right? And so it allows you to watch a video of baking a pie so you know what the steps look like and you can mimic that, all of that stuff. But what we're starting to see now are examples of in-car systems like this one, a company called Bestune, based in China. They have a holographic intelligent control system for vehicles where you get to select the image that you want projected on your dash and you talk to that avatar. And that avatar does things like turn on your seat heaters, it turns your air conditioning up or down, it talks to you about what your calendar looks like, it tells you about your navigation, tells you when you're likely to arrive, if there's an accident on the way, helps you find parking. All of those things that you would normally turn to Waze or Google Maps to help you with are now being built into systems in automobiles. So you talk with the automobile and your assistant of choice is piped in and capable of answering through this avatar. This is what we can expect to see in North America over sometime in the next 5 years. We will start to see these things coming along. As with everything automotive, if you want an idea of what's coming down the pipeline, go take a look at the Mercedes S-Class sedans. They are historically the first automobiles in the industry to get the next generation of any technology. Right now, they have screens in between their speedometer and tachometer that are infrared capable, and they have cameras on the front. So if you're driving at night and it's dark, they will show you a night vision version of what's ahead on the road. So you may not see the person because they're dressed in dark clothing. The car will see them because of their heat signature and show that to you on the dash very clearly. So these kinds of technologies tend to start with those high-end automobiles and then filter on down. This is what we can kind of use to track how that comes in. Now, we're getting close to the end here, gang. So if you've got questions, start putting them in the question area there. Kevin will come back in and then we'll kind of jump on those and see what we can do to answer them for you. But a little bit more to talk about here. I pulled in some information from a few different sources here, things about near me query growth. It's up 500+%. You know, and that contains variants of can I buy or to buy over the last 2 years. Clearly an intent signal that people wish to go somewhere to make a purchase. They're looking at those local things, okay? And that breakout is shown in this Google Ipsos study, where you can see that most of the consumers here, 81%, they mix their research online and in mobile, and it's an online purchase or an offline purchase. It is a mixed scenario that people are going with. It's not a one path scenario. It's not a one executed command situation. It is a mixture of all of these things, and whether that's, you know, purchasing a laptop, buying a TV, you know, getting a new mobile phone, or finding clothes, we see that trend across all of these things. People are still going out locally to do these things. It's not as simple as, well, I'm just going to hop on, you know, the internet. I'm going to buy a laptop and have it sent to me. No, a lot of people still want to go hands-on with that before they make that purchase. It's a high dollar purchase. They have a bunch of questions. They want to talk to people in the store. Same with television, same with signing up for your new phone, and with buying clothes. I'll get us over to our next slide here. Oh, one slide too far. Now, reviews. I'm going to touch on this just before we move over to Q&A. And this is really, really important. I want you guys to copy down this URL from Search Engine Land and go read that. I'll show it again on the next slide, but it's really important. There's a lot of useful data and information in there. The bottom line with this is that 90+% of consumers are influenced by reviews. And if you think about your own behavior, you see this in action every time you go shopping on Amazon, or you listen to your neighbor and they tell you about a new restaurant in town, or it's family and friends telling you something. It's a review, it's an endorsement. And a lot of consumers, especially millennial generations consumers or Gen Z, they would rather get information from online reviews than family or friends. They understand that family and friends often have an agenda, which is to support you, to give you the best. But sometimes that is misplaced, and you want more truth than that. There's nothing more truthful than a bunch of random strangers on the internet, and that's the power of reviews. In fact, you need to be responding to your reviews, and you can influence your star rating very directly. If you want to influence it, start responding to anywhere between 60 and 80% of all your reviews, whether they are positive or negative reviews. Get in there and have the conversation, especially if they're negative. Get in there and have the conversation with the person. Some of them will just be dead ends. They won't go anywhere. Some of them you will make ardent fans. Others, you will not be able to convince the person to change their mind no matter what you do. It will make a difference. But other consumers will see you trying, and that matters. The search engines will see you trying, and that matters, because you are displaying the intent of someone who wants to provide good customer service. And ultimately, Google and Bing want to send people to businesses that provide good service, because if they send people to businesses that provide bad service, obviously that reflects poorly on Google and Bing. They want to avoid that. So you get in there and you start responding to that. And we've done some studies at Yext that have shown that when you're responding to between 60 and 80%, I normally would say respond to as many as you can, make that 80% for the sake of simplicity. You can influence your star rating up to like 1/4 of a point higher. And that's massive, because right now there's a filter on mobile queries when people ask for best. Anything that's a superlative on best, if a consumer asks for it, they're automatically filtered whenever possible to 4 stars and higher. So if you're at 3.9 stars, you're not even showing up. You're just not a part of that conversation. The consumer doesn't even know you exist. But by going in and answering a bunch of reviews and dealing with these things, you change how consumers feel about you as a business. And when consumers feel that change, your star rating rises. You get that 1/4 point, you come up to a 3.15 or 3.2, or sorry, 4.15 or 4.2 from a 3.9. Suddenly you're 4 and higher. Now you're included in all of those queries based on relevance, distance, and prominence. That is a game changer for a lot of local businesses. And a lot of local businesses avoid reviews because they think, oh, well, it's just people complaining and I don't want that negativity. Well, you can turn that to your advantage by being seen to do something positive. And that is a huge, huge win, and one that you can control directly. So This is our last slide here, gang. I mentioned this earlier. When I was doing some research for this presentation, I came across this article at Search Engine Land, and there's a lot of useful stats for local businesses in there right now. It's a fairly fresh article, so I highly encourage folks to get in there, read through this, and understand how it applies to your business.